Check this. On September 13th, 1759, an army climbed a cliff in the dark, and by breakfast, the fate of an entire continent had changed forever. For 3 months, the British had tried everything to take Quebec. They bombarded the city from across the river. They burned villages along the St. Lawrence. They lost hundreds of men in a failed assault at Montmorency Falls. Nothing worked. General James Wolfe was running out of time, running out of men, and running out of the short Canadian summer before ice would seal the river and force his fleet to retreat. Quebec sat on a cliff, nearly impossible to attack from the river below. The French commander, the Marquis de Montcalm, knew this. He had fortified the obvious approaches and settled in to wait. Winter was his ally. Every week that passed without a British breakthrough was a week closer to victory for France. Wolfe was 32 years old, already suffering from tuberculosis and kidney problems, and increasingly desperate. His superiors in London expected results, and his own health was failing by the day. He needed a way into the city before the St. Lawrence froze over and trapped his fleet, or forced it back across the Atlantic empty-handed. But Wolfe found something Montcalm had missed. A small cove about 2 kilometers upstream from the city, called Anse-au-Foulon, had a narrow path leading up the cliff. It was steep, barely guarded, and completely overlooked. On the night of September 12th, Wolfe gathered roughly 4,500 soldiers onto flat-bottomed boats and let the current carry them silently down the St. Lawrence in near total darkness. A French sentry spotted the boats and called out, demanding to know who went there. A British officer, fluent in French, answered back that they were a supply convoy, sent to avoid British detection. The sentry believed him and let them pass. It was one of the simplest deceptions of the entire campaign, and it worked because Montcalm's forces had grown used to French supply boats moving along that stretch of river at night. By early morning, Wolfe's men had scaled the cliff and overpowered the small French guard posted at the top. When the sun rose on September 13th, Montcalm looked out from Quebec and saw something he thought was impossible. A British army standing in formation on the Plains of Abraham, a flat stretch of farmland just outside the city walls. Montcalm had a choice. He could wait for reinforcements from Trois-Rivières and Montreal, or attack immediately before the British could dig in or bring up artillery. He chose to attack, a decision historians have debated for more than 2.5 centuries. His 4,500 troops included many untrained militia rather than professional soldiers, and he committed them to open field combat against a disciplined British line. The two armies faced each other across the plains. The French advanced first, firing as they moved, but their lines were ragged and their aim inconsistent. British discipline held. Wolfe had ordered his men to hold their fire until the French were within 30 yards, an unusually close range that meant every volley counted. When the order finally came, the British fired in a single, devastating volley. Then they reloaded and fired again. The French line, already weakened by the militia's uneven training, broke apart within minutes. The battle itself lasted less than 20 minutes. Both commanders were mortally wounded. Wolfe was struck multiple times and died on the field, but not before hearing that his men were winning. Montcalm was shot in the abdomen while trying to rally his retreating soldiers and died the following morning after being carried back into Quebec. The French army retreated in disarray toward Quebec and beyond, toward Montreal. 5 days later, on September 18th, the city of Quebec formally surrendered to British forces. This single battle did not end the war. The French attempted to retake Quebec the following spring at the Battle of Sainte-Foy, and actually won. But British reinforcements arrived by ship before the French could resupply, and Montreal surrendered in September of 1760, ending French military control of Canada for good. 4 years later, the Treaty of Paris in 1763 formally transferred nearly all of France's North American territories to Britain. A conflict that had started over fur trade routes and colonial borders ended with an entirely new map of the continent. The consequences reached far beyond Quebec's walls. British control over what had been New France reshaped the political and cultural landscape of North America. French-speaking colonists remained, and their descendants make up a significant portion of Canada's population today, but they would now live under British law and administration. The battle also set events in motion far beyond Canada. War debt led Britain to new taxes on its American colonies. taxes that would spark outrage and revolution just over a decade later. All of it traces back to a narrow, unguarded path up a cliff, and 20 minutes of gunfire on a farmer's field outside Quebec City. Wolfe won because he kept searching for the one weakness everyone else had overlooked, even after 3 months of failure. Montcalm lost because he chose speed over patience, attacking before his full strength was in place. The map of an entire continent changed because of a single choice made in the chaos of one morning. Sometimes the smallest opening, a path nobody thought to guard, decides everything.